Okay, I love this. My mouse decided not to work right now. So let me see if I can get to the intro this way. And for all of you watching, I am sorry, but I am hopeful. Here we go. And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, and I am joined tonight with a guest who has information that I think everybody will find very fascinating. He has a very interesting background, and I am going to let him introduce his background, and I am going to hand over the mic to Lester Velez.
Hey, Michael, thank you very much for having me here tonight. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on. And like I said, for those who may not be familiar with you, can you give a little bit of your background?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I've been involved with this phenomena meaning the UFO experiencer phenomena, for many, many years, over 30 years. And it all started for me when I was 11 years old, and I saw this object when I was living in Connecticut, and it scared the hell out of me. And I ran in the house and tried to get my father to come out. And by the time I got him to come out, it was gone. And he says, oh, it's probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud, because this was like late October. And so it was already dark. And I didn't buy that. And I went to the library, started reading books on UFOs. And George Adamski was the big writer back in those days. It's the late 50s. And his books were amazing. He had pictures of these UFOs that were phenomenal, that he took through his telescope. He was talking about meeting with the Venusians. It was just fascinating, especially for an 11-year-old. Oh my God. I mean, this is like sci-fi to the nth degree, but very real. And so, that went on in my life for a while. And then after a while, it kind of faded. And I went off to college and was a member of the ROTC. And when I graduated from the University of Vermont, I was inducted into the military as a second lieutenant, and in the field artillery, and did that for like 6 years. Subsequently, I got married, had a couple of children, and moved out to California in 1985. And I was working with a company out there, and in the electronics business that I actually bought into. And I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, as it was called back then. Now it's just called the Mercury News. And a gentleman, a nuclear physicist by the name of Stanton Friedman, was coming to San Jose City College to talk about UFOs and a government cover-up. And it was like somebody threw a switch. It was like, oh my God, I got to go see this guy. This is very important. And so I went there and expecting to see a handful of people, and the auditorium was packed. There must have been like 300 people there. And on my way out, after this incredible lecture that he gave, there was a table set up by an organization called MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, which was established in Seguin, Texas in 1969 by a couple of engineers. And this organization produced a journal, a monthly journal, talking about the cases that they got involved with. And so it was like, okay, I got to get this journal. I got to start reading about these cases. And so I did that for a while. And it wasn't much further along that I decided that that wasn't enough for me. And I decided that I needed to do something more. Well, MUFON had a field investigator training course. And so I said, okay, I'm going to try to become a field investigator. And so I got the manual. I studied for the exam, got the exam, passed the exam, and I started to investigate cases. Well, back in those days, I was very much a nuts and bolts kind of a guy. You know, I just wanted to know how these things operated, you know, what was the propulsion system, whatever, you know, maybe who was flying them. But the cases that I got involved with were not only people telling me that they saw these objects, but they said that they had contact with non-human intelligences. And so the first case, I was somewhat skeptical, to say the least, about the fact that this person was involved with some non-human entity. But then the second case, and then the third case, and the fourth case, all started to say the same thing, that they had these contacts with these non-human intelligence. So I said, okay, there's definitely something going on. And then one day, one person said to me, do you know of other people having similar experiences? And I said, yes, I do. So next thing I'm doing, I'm facilitating a support group in my office in San Jose, California. And that's when things got really interesting. People were telling these stories that were just mind-blowing. And so I firmly believed that there was something going on, and these people needed some kind of assurance that whatever was happening to them was real. And so I brought in a psychologist, a paranormal psychologist, to intervene in the discussions and to be there when these people were talking, because we were concerned also, or at least I was concerned with the fact that maybe somebody had a psychopathology that was going on with these people, and that they were fantasizing or having these issues, whether it was schizophrenia or something else that was going on. But as it turned out, none of these people really had any psychopathology. And I did a study back in 2007 that was funded by MUFON, where we took 71 people that claimed that they had experiences with these non-human entities, and 51 people that were a control group. And we had them take various psychological instruments and studies to understand what was going on with them. And the bottom line was that none of the groups had any psychopathology. They were not crazy. They were not fantasy prone, which many debunkers talk about. Their worldview after these experiences were really changed significantly, that, we need to be better stewards of the planet. We need to be better to one another. We need to be more loving, all these kind of things that were occurring. And then we also found out that with the experiencers, there was some differences in their temporal lobe activity, which is really interesting. And Gary Nolan from Stanford University has done some incredible examinations of these people with MRIs and found out that in the area of the caudate putamen, there was a lot more connections in their brains, which then made them capable of being more psychic, being telepathic, and evidently was very generational, that they not only had this thing going on with them personally, but their parents or their grandparents also had the same thing that was going on. So anyway, I got a call one day from the international director of MUFON saying that a reporter wanted to speak to me, do a report. And so I met with this guy. He did a nice report on what I was doing. And I got a call later from a woman that said she wanted to understand what was going on with her brain when she was in contact with these entities. So at that time, I said, I have no idea how I could possibly help her. So then she said she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel, California. And so I had a doctor friend by the name of Dr. Eugene Lipson that was very interested in meeting other doctors that were interested in the phenomena. And so I called him up and I said, why don't we go down there? You can meet this doctor that she's working with, and I can meet with her, and we'll all get together and we can see where this all goes. So he said, fine. And so we went down there. And as we walked into her home, there was a picture on the wall, and it was her standing on the back of a boat, a rather large boat, in these crystal clear blue waters, looked like the Caribbean, if you will. And I said, what's this all about? And she says, well, I was helping these treasure hunters down there in the Caribbean. And I said, really? How are you doing that? She says, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down. And I said, really? So that started the afternoon off, and it kind of blew our minds right out off the bat. And as we, spoke to her later in the afternoon, the more things she came up with about ourselves, there was no possible way she would know. And then we found out that she had a near-death experience. And afterwards, after which she became very psychic. And she had all these things going on with her. And that seems to be quite a common thing with people that have near-death experiences, that afterwards they do become very psychic. So anyway, we came away from that afternoon, kind of, shaking our heads and going, okay, if we're going to help people like this, what do we got to do? And that's when OPUS was hatched. The OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, that I co-founded with Dr. Lipson back in 1994, which is a 501c3 nonprofit recognized by the IRS, which always cracks me up because the IRS and the paranormal, how does that go together? But anyway, it seems to anyway. But anyway, so we've been doing what we do, and to put it in a nutshell, our mission basically is to help people having paranormal experiences, and the way we do it is threefold. What we do is we have a totally confidential online support group where we have almost 400 people in the group from around the world, literally around the world: Japan, Asia, Australia, Europe, Africa, you name it. I mean, there's people from all over the world that are involved in talking 24/7, talking about their cases, their experiences, and asking questions. And then we have a referral network of mental health practitioners and hypnotherapists that can help these people if that's something that they're looking for. And the last group is our E.S.T, the Experiencer Support Team, which is a group of people that have a lot of experience in various areas that these people are involved with, that do a triage and find out what it is that they're really looking for. And the paranormal covers a lot of areas. I mean, it covers, poltergeist activity, spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening, many things. And as it turned out over the years, for whatever reason, we've mainly had people come to us that have had experience with non-human intelligences. Now, what does that mean? Is it extraterrestrial in nature? Is it interdimensional in nature? Is it time travelers? Is it our military? Or is it all the above, which I firmly believe it is? I think it can be any and all of those, and maybe even more. Because it seems like there are just so many facets to this that are these people that are experiencing these things talk to us about and say, this is what happened to me, and it doesn't seem to fall into a particular category. But the bottom line is, if you look at it in totality, that it can fall into certain categories. As I say, whether it's extraterrestrial, in other words, very physical in nature, is it interdimensional, which may be more etheric in nature, time travelers, which is, there's been many cases where people are talking about the fact that it's us coming back from the future and interfacing with us. And then, of course, there's all kinds of stories about our military being involved in these abductions and things of that nature. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
No, and
a roundabout way. But anyway,
that's fascinating, actually.
That's how I got involved with all this, and spent many years with MUFON, being a field investigator, being instructing field investigators in Northern California, being assistant director in Northern California, setting up an organization within MUFON to assist abductees. And I am still a member now of MUFON on a regular membership basis, but also as a research consultant for the E.R.T, their Experiencer Resource Team, which again is a group of people within MUFON that works with the people that come to them and looking for help. And they also have resources as far as mental health and hypnotherapy, such as OPUS does. And going back even further, when MUFON did not have this in-house expertise, I had called the international director at that time, James Carrion, and said, "You guys are missing the boat, not working with these people and helping them." And so what they did was all the calls that they were getting back in those days were directed to me. And so I was helping those people as OPUS, and that worked out very well until such time that they finally decided that they wanted to get this capability in-house. And Kathleen Martin, who I know very well, is a good friend, set up that organization within MUFON. And so now they're doing that, which is great. So now we have two organizations that are trying to help people do this kind of thing. And I think there's other organizations out there. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, a lot of other organizations are reticent about working together and sharing information and things of that nature. So,
right.
That's one of the problems in this whole field, is that people have their own agendas and they're not willing to share and do what they need to do to help people. And so all I can say is, I hope that whoever listens to this conversation gets the message that we do need to work together, because this is a very significant issue. And now that we have all these congressional hearings going on with Grush and Graves and Favor, talking about the fact that we have Tic Tacs and we have all this these events going on, it's real. We have crashed UFO. We have alien bodies, folks. So this is very much confirmation of the fact that things are going on, and people that have had these experiences now understand that whatever they had is absolutely happened to them, that this is something that needs to be looked at in a serious way to try to better understand it. And so, unfortunately, there are factions within our government, some which want it to come out, and the others that don't want it to come out. Whether it's a DOD or the Pentagon or whoever you want to call it, a three-letter organization, don't want this information to be put out there because of quote unquote national security reasons. Well, I can understand national security, but at the same time, there are people suffering with these types of experiences that need help. And that I think that it's only behooves us and our government to basically stand up and recognize the fact that yes, this is happening. We understand what's happening, and that we need to take whatever action makes sense, because at this point in time, most of the experiences that people are having are not negative. Yes, there are negative experiences. There's no question about it. And that we're fighting maybe not just one group of entities, non-human intelligence, but multiple. I mean, there's all kinds of numbers that have been thrown out there. There could be like 86 different groups that are interacting with us. Some of them, and most of them, are positive, and some of them are negative. And so I think, these are the kind of things that, just like we have here on Earth, we got good people, we got bad people. We got really bad people.
Right.
And the same thing is happening out there. It's the same exact thing. We have groups that want to sustain us. We want us to have a good place to live, and others that want to wipe us out, get rid of us, and may probably because of the fact that we're doing such a crappy job of taking care of this planet. And one of the things that people talk about, that have come back after an abduction, is the fact that we need to be better stewards of the planet. We need to take care of the planet, do a better job. We need to be better at our relationships with people. Be kind, be more loving, and things of that nature, which is great. And if more and more people feel that way, maybe we can get rid of the Putins of the world and the Xis of China and whoever else is out there, the North Korean jerko. And what is going on in this world? We have such crap going on right now. Why do we need to put up with this stuff? I mean, this is, if we get rid of all this war all over the place, and people just settle down, take care of business, be kind to one another, we could spend all that money doing things that are more positive. And I've always thought, well, it's probably time for the women to take over the world because the men are screwing it up too fairly well.
I have a question for you that's been curious in my mind. Is having seen or feel like I've seen UFO and UFO activity, what are some things that people who feel like they've experienced this need to look for to say, yes, I have experienced a UFO encounter, or I've seen a UFO, and then can reach out and get help if they need to around it? But because to me, I find a lot of people, when you say, I think I've seen a UFO, their first reaction is, yeah, you need to check into the loony bin, because, yeah, UFOs don't exist.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of people out there that certainly have that kind of, feeling about the subject. And so these are people that, if you're talking to them, okay, so you have a person that's seen something, all right, and they want to talk to somebody. And the bottom line is that most people that they might talk to might not have a positive feeling about that. And that they feel that, well, if you're telling me that you saw a UFO, then you're absolutely crazy. And this is a stigma. This is a very prevalent stigma that is attached to the subject. And so it's unfortunate, because the bottom line is that most people that see an object, okay, that's not the only thing that happens to them. In a lot of cases, and the cases that I investigated years and years ago, over 30 years ago, most of these people that cited something, they also had contact with these non-human intelligences. And that's even a bigger factor, let alone the fact that they saw an object. Now they're dealing with these entities. Well, it's something that in most cases you can't talk to your family members, you can't talk to your spouse, you can't talk to your fellow workers, you can't talk to your clergy, because first of all, you're probably, number one, you're probably afraid that they will think you're crazy, and if you do tell them that, they will think you're crazy. All right, because they have not seen that, they have not had that experience, and our media. Our disinformation agencies like the triple A, alphabet agencies, the CIA, the NRO, et cetera, have put that kind of information out there that if you've seen something, you must be crazy. You got to be a crazy person, and it's unfortunate that that's occurred, but it's changing. It's changing. And I think that now people are coming to the realization that these people are not crazy. In my studies that I've done, these people are not crazy. They don't have a psychopathology. And a lot of these people, when they have these experiences, they do go to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and because they think they're going crazy, and they find out that they're not crazy. So then what? What do you do then? And so they need somebody to listen to them and talk to them. And that's what our organization, OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, which you can go to opusnetwork.org and see what we're all about. This gives a person a safe place to tell their story, to ask their questions. It's a totally neutral place. There's no judgments made. We want to just listen to you, talk to you, and help you as best we can.
And I think that's a great thing, because I agree that, it's needed and the world is changing. And I kind of want to pick your mind from a MUFON standpoint of like Stephenville, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Huge place where a lot of UFOs have been seen, or the Marfa lights.
Yeah.
UFOs are not. But the big question is, why are certain areas more prevalent to UFO activity than others? Or is it just those places are more open to talk about it, and it is worldwide?
No, there are hotspots. There are hotspots. I mean, if you look at the MUFON monthly report on sightings, I mean, the three big places are California, Florida, and Texas. And that may be a factor of population too, but there are other areas where there's been a lot of different sightings. And so it seems like the 38th parallel, there's a line that goes across there, a longitude or latitude, I should say, that seems to be a lot of areas along that line. And so it's these energy lines that create those kind of things going on. Is this some kind of recharging station of some sort? We don't know. We just don't know. But the bottom line on all of this is the fact that it's going on. It's happening, folks. It's happening. Marfa lights still are unexplainable, along with the Halsden in Sweden area there, where they've had the same kind of things going on. There have been many research studies done with these orbs that are going on. We just don't have the answers, folks. We don't, and so this is another reality that is in existence that we somehow see at times, and sometimes we don't see. I mean, there are people that have. There's been instances of multiple witnesses, some of which will see this object and others won't. Is that a factor of how their particular eye physiology works, that they can see a broader spectrum? There's many cases where people can't see anything but in infrared. These objects are seen. That's gone on many times. And so there's so many factors that go along with this phenomena that is mind-boggling. And the bottom line is that I think that we still have a lot of ground to cover, and hopefully now that this field is starting to open up more because of the congressional hearings and the various studies that have been conducted, going back to Harry Reid and the $22 million, the ATIP program. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating that we are in this time, that you and I are in this time frame right now, because this is probably as open as it's been in decades. The last big congressional hearing was back in '68, with Gerald Ford, and now here we go. I was so heartened by the fact that this last congressional hearing with Grush there, that it was so bipartisan. We had Republicans and Democrats on the same page. They were in agreement. Oh my God, I almost fell off my chair watching that thing, that they were actually on the same page. So maybe something will get done this time and that we'll move along further. But I can understand we have two different groups. We have groups that want this to come out and groups that don't want it to come out. And I can understand the national security issues with this, because we certainly don't want the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans or the Iranians to understand that we may have technology that they don't have. And we certainly don't want to put it out there. So, anyway.
All right. Now, I'm also curious your opinion and if it's similar or different from MUFON's. When people talk about like USOs or unidentified submerged objects, as well as UFOs, and I'm wondering, does the terminology change when an object is underwater and leaves the water and flies off into space? Does it stop being USO and become UFO? And at the same time, if it's underwater, does that mean there's underground bases?
Well, that's two questions. One is the distinct possibility that there are underwater bases, okay, because we have not explored the ocean depths as much as we have the moon, okay? So there's a lot more to be seen or, explored in that regard. These things are trans the word, I'm losing the word at the moment, but transmedium objects, so that they can fly in the air, under the water, and go at speeds that are very similar to what they can do in the air. Now, no object that we have can do anything like that. Nothing like that. They've been clocked at 200 miles an hour in the water. 200 miles an hour underwater with the friction of water. Well, the bottom line on this is the only way that that could happen is if they were basically mutating time and space, that they could move this whole thing just as they do in the air, that they can move so fast and overcome gravity because of the actions that they do would basically turn a human into liquid. The G forces that they would experience, but because they can actually manipulate space and time, that they can overcome these types of things. I mean, I certainly don't understand the technology. I don't, and but I believe there are people out there that feel that they do better understand it, and that probably our government has a much better handle on how these things operate, and so, you know, it's something that there's a lot more to be learned, and whether or not you and I will ever hear that out of the mouths of anybody in the government, it's a big question.
Right. And one thing I find interesting from a lot of the stories throughout our history of printing about UFOs is like Catalina Island of California is huge activity. Like you said, Texas is huge activity. Florida has a lot of reports near the southern tip. And the one thing I find interesting is all of them there's military bases there, and there's been incidents there. And so I'm wondering, is there a correlation between, are they watching our military to keep an eye on us so that we don't, like you're saying, cross the line and obliterate the planet? Or do you think they're just watching us and saying, is today the day they're going to do it or not?
Well, I think that a lot of the nuclear facilities are being watched. I had an opportunity to chat with, oh God, his name is escaping me at the moment. Salas, Bob Salas, who was a captain at Malmstrom Air Force Base when that UFO came in and shut the missiles down, took them all offline. Okay, and this has happened in Russia too, and so there seems to be a keen interest in whatever our nuclear capabilities are, and so. There's also been instances where a UFO shot down a missile, and it's recorded on film. And the gentleman that recorded that was on the film crew, and it's if you do an archive search on that, it's out there. It's on YouTube somewhere. I can't think of the gentleman's name, but. Yeah, they recorded this UFO sending out a ray on the missile because evidently they must have thought that we were launching a nuclear weapon somewhere, and so they decided that they'd shoot it down. So, in one respect, I guess that's a good thing if Russians decide to launch against us, that they will shoot it down in some way, shape, or form. And the same thing with us, that they'd shoot our stuff down. There seems to be a keen interest ever since we blew off the first atomic bomb in New Mexico. If you looked at the Oppenheimer movie, that whole scenario there, and but there's been many sightings of UFOs around that whole facility, all during that period of time. So they're keenly interested in that, and so I guess they don't want us to blow ourselves up.
In World War II, there was the Battle of Los Angeles that
Yeah.
nobody knows about unless you really are a UFO researcher, because it's like the story just disappeared. And it's, to me, I'm like,
Yeah.
how?
Yeah. Whether they were shooting at an object, or was it just some kind of hysteria that overtook them after they saw something that may or may not have been there. Who knows? Because nothing was shot down. No, there was no evidence of anything that was there. But yeah, that's an interesting story in and of itself. Whether or not something, you know, had occurred at that time. But boy, they sure shot off a lot of rounds.
I know, and it's like all the lights and everything that was going. I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way you know, if they said, oh, it was a weather balloon. I'm like, I don't think so, because they wouldn't have fired, like you're saying, so many rounds at a balloon floating over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's true. That is true.
Now, another question I have for you, it's kind of, I'm curious, with, we talking about UFOs and how they operate differently. Your take on, Germany, World War II. Hard, there's no real manufacturing. The country is in dissolution. How they built up a military and started taking things over is a mystery itself, but they went from prop plane to jet plane and had the first jet planes ever used. Do you feel like that could possibly have been reverse engineered from a UFO that they got their hands on?
Well,
and were able to make that leap?
Well, I think there's other things going on. Einstein talked about the fact that a lot of his theories came from his dreams, input, that downloads that he got. Where did those downloads come from?
I would say,
where did Edgar Cayce? He was able to do some incredible things, curing people, and he would go to sleep and he'd get these downloads. Okay. There are mathematicians that have gotten incredible information, that have solved some incredible problems. I don't think necessarily that we're looking at reverse engineering. It's engineering that has come to the minds of these people through these downloads. And where are they coming from? Where are these downloads coming from? There is a universal consciousness that is out there. And sometimes people can tap into these things. And I think that ability is not restricted to just anyone. It could be any of us. But you need to be in the right state of mind to accept these kind of things, to be open to these kind of things. So that's my feeling on this thing. Just like Einstein, I mean, and then Tesla too. He talked about the fact that he got downloads,
right,
from someone somewhere somehow. It just wasn't just him, puttering around in the lab. All of a sudden, he gets this download, and he creates the AC instead of DC. It's like, oh, it's phenomenal. And so I think there's some kind of energy, some consciousness,
right,
this universal consciousness that exists. And maybe some people call it God. It could be called God, I guess, or some supreme being or source or whatever or Buddha or whatever you want to call it, that transmits this kind of information and then we all of a sudden are are able to produce these kind of things, and we move forward in technology. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
It is. And talking about Tesla, one of my favorite moments when people always say, why is Tesla so a controversial topic? And I look at him and I say, well, he's going up against Morgan, Edison, and all of them who are making you buy electricity. And he goes and puts a light bulb on the ground and lights up an entire grid. And you're telling me if you're trying to make a living off of selling electricity, you're not going to take that as a threat and try and suppress that? And they don't have an answer for that. But I think he really could do that.
Yeah, well, the thing is that's very common. I mean, just like the guy that invented a vehicle that could run on gas, he was killed. I mean, not on gas, but on water. On water. And so there are many inventions that have been repressed or taken over by the Navy. The Navy is ruthless when it comes to this kind of stuff. They have taken over so many patents and taken over so much technology. And why the Navy is the ones that are involved with that, but they seem to be the main people involved with this. We could have anti-gravity. We could have engines that don't have moving parts. We can have all kinds of things that, unfortunately, between the automotive industry, the energy industry, you name it, the last thing they want to do is to screw up what they got going on right now.
Right.
They don't want you to not buy gas anymore. They want you to keep filling up your tank, folks.
It's interesting how you pointed that out, those three, because what flashed in my mind was the movie American President with Michael Douglas. And I know it has nothing to do with UFOs, but that moment when he says, oh, you're going up against the big three, and everybody's like, oh, they're talking about the oil and petroleum companies monopolies. And I'm thinking now maybe they were talking about, like you were saying, those three top energy fields. And we all assume, oh, this is all just this, but it's actually much bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, years and years ago, the General Motors, Standard Oil, and Firestone were brought to court because what they were doing, they were going around the country buying up all the light rail systems and basically putting them out of business because they wanted to sell buses and tires and gas. And they were fined. They were brought to court, and they were brought to the court as conspirators in this plan to put all these light rail companies out of business. And bottom line is they were fined $1. They were fined $1, and that was the end of it. Now, guess what's happening these days? A lot of these light rails are coming back because people are understanding that's the way to go. It makes a lot more sense. And so hopefully, eventually, we will get to the point where we understand that if we continue to go down the road using fossil fuel, we're going to kill ourselves, literally, with all the carbon that's putting into the air, carbon dioxide, and things of that nature that comes from utilizing fossil fuel, that we won't have to worry about it anymore because none of us will be alive. One day we won't have enough air to breathe, and the entire planet will just die in one day. Boom. and Mother Nature will take over, and the next generation, whatever that might be, will take over.
And I can't help wondering too, like, if the races, that have the UFO tech and everything are helping us, because I remember being taught in school, for example, like Chernobyl, that it's going to be a wasteland for centuries. Never going to be able to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it today and it's green. Life has returned there, but yet we were told that would never happen.
Well,
so has nature corrected itself and said to us, you're wrong, you don't understand me? Or do you think because there's been UFO activity there, they altered the conditions?
Well, I think that it probably, just because it's green doesn't mean it's safe for humans. I think the plant life, for whatever reason, is able to grow through that situation. But as humans, I don't think I would want to go hang out in Chernobyl myself. So, and whether or not there are UFOs there or not, that's a whole other story.
I was just curious. I don't have any plans on going there, but I was just thinking, because if they have the technology to, like you're saying, go 200 miles underwater,
mm-hmm.
and be able to go in air without even changing vehicles, they can go underwater to above water.
Right.
Then I'm sure they have ways of fixing radiation and making it something beneficial than a wasteland.
Well, it would be nice. It would certainly be nice. But I don't have a clue as to whether or not they have that capability.
So what is coming up for you right now? I understand you're at a conference right now.
No, I'm not at a conference right now. I'm just having a little vacation, and but there's something coming up in Reno in May, and then MUFON has its big symposium in July in Dallas. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No.
Yeah, if you go on their website, MUFON.com, you'll see that they have a big symposium that's going to be at the airport, I think Hilton, DFW Hilton, and at the airport there. The details are all on their website. Just go to MUFON.com. But that's coming up in July, and I'll be there for that. I'm going to be an exhibitor there, and have a table set up. And I also produced a book 2 years ago called The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact, which talks about the physical and psychological effects of contact with these non-human intelligences and the various entities that these people are running into, and a lot of other details with regard to UFOs and the government. So it's a good read. And also I have the full omega-3 study where we took the 71 experiencers and 51 control people that we had them take various psychological tests and found out that they didn't have a psychopathology, they weren't fantasy prone, and their worldview changed, and they did have different temporal activity in their brain, which is something that needs to be further analyzed. So it's quite interesting.
Mentioning the temporal, I was curious about that when you brought it up in the beginning, and since you brought it up again, I'll ask the question: was the temporal, was it before the encounter to where it was engaged more, and that's why they were able to see the UFO, or was an aftermath of the UFO encounter?
Yeah, I don't think we understand yet what the significance is of that. Is this something that allows them to have these kind of experiences, to be able to communicate with these intelligences? It seems to be a thing that allows them to be a little bit more telepathic, where they can actually communicate with these entities telepathically, which seems to be the mode of communication that seems to be very prevalent. So it's just a factor that there's a difference. There's a difference. And so what does that difference mean? And we don't fully understand what that difference means. I know, and I mentioned Gary Nolan from Stanford University did some interesting studies with experiencers and found that in the area of the caudate and putamen, there was a lot more connections in the brain of these people that had psychic abilities and telepathic capabilities. And it was generational. That, they found that if a child had this, then the parents had it, and then the grandparents had it, and that it was almost like an evolutionary thing that was going on, where all of a sudden the next generation is the next evolvement of humanity, and that eventually people like you and me who don't have that capability will not be here anymore. We'll just fade out. We'll fade out, and these people will continue on because they're going to be interacting with these other people that have that same capability. And there seems to be a real correlations between those people and the people that they meet. They seem to connect. And so then you're going to have people having offspring that are going to have the same capability. And if you can have psychic ability and telepathic capability, that'll put you in a category where you're going to be able to do things and understand things a lot better than you and I. And so eventually, like I say, you and I will just not be here anymore.
Right. And I know we're getting close to the hour, and I had another question I wanted to ask before we ended, if you have time.
Sure.
And that is, we talk about, you kind of mentioned, looking at generations of people with these encounters. And if I'm understanding it right, is there a possibility that, say, my mother has an encounter and her mother had an encounter, that I will have an encounter? Is it kind of a hereditary gene or experience that's passed on, or is it just luck of the draw, so to speak? Who's gonna?
No, there seems to be some correlation with generations having, if your grandparents or your parents had experiences, then you probably will too. They seem to follow generations. Okay. Now, what groups are more susceptible? We have ex-military people. We have Native Americans that seem to be a big group that they follow. But certainly, if you find out that your mother or your grandmother or whoever in your family has had an experience, then most likely you probably will too.
Well, that's really cool. And so, with this getting to the end of the hour, where can people find you and your organization if they have any questions?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, first of all, Michael, for having me on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. If people would like, to contact us, you can contact us at opusnetwork.org, opusnetwork.org. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We survive on donations, so if you would like to give, it's tax deductible. We also are looking for more therapists all the time. We're looking for licensed therapists, certified hypnotherapists. We also have a YouTube channel. If you go to OPUS, separate word network, please go on there. We have interviews that I have done, and I think you'll find them very interesting. Please subscribe, give us a like, all that kind of stuff. It helps us also with the YouTube group, and maybe doing a little monetization as well to help the cause. But anyway, we are here to help. As I said, with a totally confidential online support group, a referral network of mental health practitioners and hypnotherapists, and a triage group of very experienced people that can talk to you when you come to us. So anyway, really, again, appreciate it. And thank you for what you do, Michael. This is a very important thing to get the word out on all the subjects that you cover, because this is how people get to understand that these kind of things are going on with shows like this. So again, thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone who is watching and will watch the replays. And I hope you enjoy. And Les, is there something like a little pearl of wisdom that you could leave everyone with around the UFOs and kind of help them be more comfort?
That's a good question. I think the bottom line is that you're not alone. You're not alone. There are many, many people having these experiences. And so if you feel that way, come check us out. Go to our site, opusnetwork.org. Jump into the support group. I think you'll find it one of the most beneficial things that you can do to not feel that way. And so we look forward to helping you.
Thank you. And we hope that you'll come back on the show. We enjoyed having you.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. Will do.
Thank you. And with that, we are going to wish everyone a wonderful night, day, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. So good night, everyone.